Good afternoon, everyone, especially to our dear instructor, Sir Bong Macapil. We are the second to the last reporter, and we are going to report the Chapter 8, which is the pro-social behavior. But before that, let me introduce myself first. I am Marian B. Gores, one of the reporters.
And I am Julila Ampuen Abbas.
And I am Hayati Gato.
And I am Mehan Amay Karot.
Welcome everyone to our report. Next slide, please. Okay. For the introduction, acts that benefit another person are referred to as pro-social behavior, helping behavior or altruism. Some use this interchangeably, but there are distinctions and differences as they are used in the research literature. Pro-social behavior is a broad category of acts that are valued positively by society. Contrast it with anti-social behavior. Pro-social behavior is defined as behavior that has positive social consequences and contributes to the physical or psychological well-being of another person. When we talk about pro-social behaviors, um, these are those intended or intention to help other people. These actions are characterized by a concern for the rights, feelings, and welfare of other people. Behaviors that can be described as prosocial include feeling empathy and concern for other people. When we talk about empathy, it's like you're putting yourself in someone else's position and feeling what they must be feeling. So social behavior includes a wide range of actions such as helping, sharing, comforting, and cooperating. The term itself introduced or originated during the 1970s and was introduced by social scientists as an antonym for the term anti-social behavior. So being pro-social includes, next slide please. Next slide, or being pro-social includes being helpful and altruistic. It also embraces acts of charity, cooperation, friendship, rescue, sacrifice, sharing, sympathy, and trust. So as you can see, all these characteristics of being a pro-social are all positive, and it is kanang kuan jud siya kanang pang care or pag kuan jud siya sa others is like um kanang for kanang bitong characters nga kuan kanang it's like your kanang bitong para jud sa lahat or kanang helping in general. So next slide is one of the subcategory of prosocial behavior, which is the helping behavior. So don't you worry, group mates, kay even though wala nag-move ato ang slides sa to nakita nga share screen is akong pag-record guys is nag-move siya guys, so don't worry. Um, Helping behavior is a subcategory of prosocial behavior as mentioned earlier. So helping is intentional and it benefits another living being or group. So when we talk about helping behavior, it is providing aid or benefit to another person. So it does not matter what the motivation of the helper is, only that the recipient is assisted. So this is distinguished from the more general term, which is prosocial behavior, which can include any cooperative or friendly behavior. So it is also distinguished from the more specific term, altruistic behavior, which will be going or which will be discussed by Jalila Abbas. G.
Yes, Ken?
Do you have your workbook na it's your turn na G
Yes,
sa
yes, Ken.
altruistic
Sige, sige.
behavior.
So the next is the altruistic behavior, which is another subcategory of prosocial behavior and refers to an act that is meant to benefit another rather than oneself. In this respect, Dan Batson, 1991, proposed that true altruism is selfless, although there is some difficulty with the concept. Now, in simple word, altruism is much focused on the condition of others. Nagiging selfish sila sa kanilang sarili kasi mas naiisip nila yung kondisyon ng ibang tao. Mas tinutulungan nila yung ibang tao kaysa sarili nila. They are more focused on the welfare of other person in compare sa sarili nila. Like for instance, when it comes sa situation na life and death na, parang mas unahin pa nilang ibang taong tulungan kaysa sa sarili nila. That is altruistic behavior.
Yes, indeed. Being selfish is or an altruistic behavior.
Yes.
So for the next slide is evolutionary approach, which will be discussed by Mehan. Am I correct?
Okay, so evolutionary approach, put simply, the biological position is that humans have innate tendency to eat, drink, mate, and fight, and to help others. This could be why humans have been so successful in an evolutionary sense. So sa madaling salita, ang kung saan ang mga tao ay may natural na hilig to eat, drink, mate, and fight, and also to help others. This could be why ang mga tao daw ay nagiging successful in an evolutionary sense. So Jeffrey Stevens and his colleagues distinguish two reliable explanation of cooperative behavior in animal and humans, the mutualism and kin selection. So na next ang slide yan.
Yes, Mehan.
Okay, so mutualism. Mutualism, cooperative behavior that benefits the cooperator as well as others. A defector will do worse than a cooperator. So, ang mutualism is a willingness and ability to work with others kung saan the cooperator as well as other will both can benefit. So, number 2 is kin selection, in which a cooperator is biased toward blood relatives because it helps propagate one's own genes. The lack of direct benefit to the cooperator indicates altruism. Ang kin selection is kung saan ang isang cooperator is biased siya sa kanyang mga blood relatives to help propagate one's own genes. So next, Marianne.
So next slide is about perspective taking, which will be discussed by Hayate Gato. Hayate.
Perspective taking. To experience empathic concern requires us to demonstrate perspective taking, being able to see the position of another person from that person's point of view. According to Jean Licity and Klaus Lam, this capacity has evolutionary significance. Feeling of others, but human can both feel and act intentionally on behalf of others. So every individual has its own perspective in particular situation. Just like kanang naa sa picture, ang isa makitan sa isa kay 3, ang isa kay 4. So as an individual, we have different point of view, feeling, and also our thoughts. Pero kita nga tawo na atay utok og hunahuna sa mga butang, we tend to understand differences. Next, Marianne.
Okay, thank you for that, Hayate. So next is the social approach. A major explanation of helping is that displaying pro-social behavior is intricately bound up with becoming socialized. So it is learned, not inborn. So various theories have argued that the processes of classical conditioning, instrumental conditioning, and observational learning all contribute to being pro-social. So in dealing with child development, Nancy Eisenberg noted a strand of research directed to the way that pro-social behavior is acquired in childhood. It is indeed because in classical conditioning, so as we all know that it is a type of learning that happens unconsciously. So when you learn through classical conditioning, an automatic conditioned response is paired with a specific stimulus. Therefore, this creates behavior. So, for example, when we teach good behavior to children by rewarding them with a small treat or new toy, so if they struggle with sharing, so reward them when they make an effort to share. So in ano naman in auto instrumental conditioning, so 'di ba kung ano siya katong reinforcement or punishment. So when we teach our child at an early age to share with others or help with others, so we should 'di ba remember the positive reinforcement which involves presenting a favorable outcome. So if ang bata is kanang bitong na siya gibuhat nga maayo or something like kanang when she do good deeds or good acts, therefore kanang kabalo siya adto nga if mabuhat siya adto, if naa siya kuan kanang positive reinforcement o naa siya kanang like for example compliment ng parents or sa kumbaga sa iya ang kuan mga people nga nag-surround sa iya which is naka-appreciate sa iya ang gibuhat. So in observational learning is 'di ba ang bata is kuan kanang inhere man god sa kuan ug unsa imong ginakuan bitaw gina-act or ginapakita sa bata is as we all know bata is very kuan jud na siya kanang imitate or kanang bitang kusog kay mo sundog-sundog kanang bitang nagpakita tag-act nga nag-help ta sa laing tawo. Therefore ang bata pod is ginasundog sad niya or gina-imitate sad niya og unsa to ang act nga gikuan ginabuhat. Therefore sa upbringing o sa pagkanang bitong sa kanang growing stage or developmental stage sa bata is ma-acquire niya to nga mga behavior which is ma-instill sa iya ang mind hantod sa pagdako niya, and then kato siya nga behavior is madala niya or kanang bitong magamit niya throughout the kuan kanaya ang journey sa life. So G, do you have something to add for?
Wala na yan. Very
Okay,
well
okay.
said.
So that's all for the social approach. So next is the norms for helping.
Okay, norms for helping. Often we help others simply because something tells us that we should. This is actually true. Kasi minsan nagbe-base din yung ugali natin kung paano tayo mag-behave sa isang place by what people tells us. Especially pag bata tayo, like dapat ganito ka sa kanila, dapat maging mabait ka sa kanila, dapat tumulong ka sa ganyan. So, in the development process, ma-realize mo din na this become a lesson, and this will shape your behavior. Then, nakakatulong din ito uh, sa helping behavior mo kasi yung mga sinasabi nila sa'yo, nagiging lesson yun sa'yo. Like, for instance, help that little old lady cross the street, hand in a wallet we found in the supermarket, help a crying child. An important influence that develops and sustains pro-social behavior is a cultural norms. That is true because norms provide a tells tells us on how we behave in a community, in a people who surrounds us. Then sa norms kasi, mostly, hindi lang mostly, ang talagang tinuturo sa norms is yung mga mabubuti. So norms really helps a person kung paano ba siya umasta sa maraming tao, kung tutulong ba siya, hindi lang sa pagtulong, but in a person's in a person ability at sa pagkatao niya. One way to account for instance, tumutulong ka sa mga matatandaan, this is a norm, this is one of the norm and a Filipino, not just by the Filipino, pero parang lahat sa atin, parang tinuturo na sa atin na tumulong ganyan, tumulong sa nangangailangan, tumulong sa nakakatanda, respetuhin ang nakakatanda. Ganyan. Sa norms then, there are social rewards for behaving in accordance with the norm. And there is also a sanction for violating the norms. Ganyan yun. That's it.
Indeed, G,
Yan,
na ano yun.
yan, any additional idea?
Indeed, G, ka nang, in addition to your discussion, you're right na, di ba, when we talk about elders, so it is normal na jud sa ato ang mga kanang like mga
Yes,
batanon or sa mga
exactly.
bata pa na mo tabang jud, so dili so kung baga dili na ta dapat ignon sa ato ang kuan sa na mga kita, uy tabangin na siya kay kuan na naglisod, so kuan na bitaw na unconsciously mabuhat na nato, di ba? So for
Yes.
ikaw na ay tangang nagkuan ay naay tigulang nga nagtabo sa kuan sa imong like sa imong scenario kanina. So dili na ka mag-agad pa nga, uy Jalila tabangin na siya, okay dili
Tabangi kay
naglisod na
naano
siya
sa
o
imong
kuan.
instinct na tulungan siya kasi
Yes.
matanda yun eh, di ba?
Yes.
Na
Yes,
parang na-learn na natin
unconscious na
yun.
bitaw kay murag
Yes,
normal na sa tong
exactly.
society nga tabangan ang mga tigulang kay
Mm-mm.
if dili na to sila tabangan makuan ta ma-name ta og walay batasan, di ba? Murag inana, di
True.
ba?
Yes,
Ang kuan.
exactly.
So that's it. So
Ah.
next is the bystander apathy. So Jane Pilliavin and her colleagues wanted to know how empathy impacted on whether people chose to help or not help in an emergency. However, this field of research has an older history. So a single event gave it a major impetus. So the murder of a young woman called Kitty Genovese in New York in 1964, which will be shown in the next slide. Her murder um, in New York, upheld New York residents. So the initial frenzy of research that followed Kitty's murder focused on the situational factors that affect bystander intervention rather than on how helping behavior is learned. So failure to intervene fairly naturally invited a focus on people's thinking processes, leading to developing a cognitive model of helping. So what has revealed? So we now know that a lone bystander is more likely to help than any of several bystanders. So a phenomenon known as the bystander effect. So people are less likely to help when there are other people in the vicinity because there is a dispersion of responsibility between them. Also, audience inhibition inhibits people from acting for fear of being judged or overacting. So G, what is your kanang ano kanang or usa ang imong may storya if ever nga naa ka adto sa place where asa gikuan asa ang katubitong case ni Kitty nahitabo. So what is your standard intervention or about bystander apathy in general?
Kuan yan, if I will be in that situation, what comes first in my mind is that maghulat ko kung sinong first na lumapit sa kanya. Kasi this is a very serious case. Kasi murder yun eh. First napapasok sa utak ko is hindi ko muna siya lalapitan kasi baka ako yung masisi or mag-aantay lang ako ng iba na mag-respond sa kanya bago ako lalapit. Ganun yun eh kasi we have a lot of idea or what if ganyan, what if lumapit ako tapos okay lang pala siya, what if lumapit ako tapos masali ako doon sa ginawa sa kanya. So parang nag-aantay tayo ng first na mag-move before tayo lumapit sa kanya. Kasi kahit kayo yung nandun sa situation na yun, hindi kayo yung mag-first move na tulungan siya unless kung kilala mo talaga yung taong yun, 'di ba?
Yes, that's true, G. And magmatter po na siya sa mga bystander po nga na dito. So we're
Yeah,
in,
sa
let's
environment,
example,
sa naka-surround dito.
so what if daghan kaayo mo na ada to nga mga bystanders and then in that scenario kung ako like anang awel ko an kanang ipanang nako dadto kunuhay. So if ako ra pud isa ang magkuan kaning mag first og kana bitong kuan intervene adto nga kuan na nahitabo about kag Kitty, it's like kanang murag i-judge ay kana bitong murag naana na ako ang responsibility between sa
Oh,
unsay ni Kitty o sa ako ang pagtabang. Instead na akong intention is to help Kitty, but at the end sa kanang bitong mata sa mga tao is that hala
mm.
ngano man ni siya ni kuan basig kung kuan pa bitaw ako na noy mahimong kanang daotan bitaw ako na noy mahimong kana bitong cause sa ug unsay mahitabo ni Kitty kay naa na
True.
ko ang kuan murag naa na ko ang responsibility kay ako'y una ni hagama sa ak kay kuan magud
Mm.
na siya kanang pag ang pagkuan manggod kaning tabang manggod sa kuan pag naina ni bitaw is like kanang magkuan pa ka sa una is unsay na unsa ang situation mulantaw sa kung sa situation di ba kay as we all know people nowadays are very judgmental and if kanang
Exactly.
makuan pud ka if motabang pud ta din murabi tag sa atong hunahuna sa giingon ni Hayati ganina so laylay tag perspective so laylay tag kuan pang thinking
Mm.
what
Mm.
if si Kitty di is wala na siya gipatay or wala na siya gistab so gikuan murag gihalog na siya so ako nga ni tabang kuan ko so ko kay
Ikaw yung
ko
mapapahiya.
yeah so
Then ikaw pa yung
ma-impress ko so therefore sa katupong sa scenario ni Kitty is that ang pag-intervene is very hard sa giingon nimo ganina G. It is very hard to intervene a specific situation wherein kana bitang walay una ni take og action kay di ba when ang bystander apathy is or ang bystander effect is like a kanang domino na siya domino kung ang isa is mo take action siya first and then ang uban na magsulpot-sulpot wala isa nga mo kuan kung wala isa nga mo take og action therefore kanang wala jud kuan wala jud helping behavior nga mahitabo sa kuan sa bystander apathy di ba G?
Another thing, guys. Oh, yan. True. Another thing is, have you been, guys, in a situation na nasa harap kayo ng nag-aaway na parang magkarelasyon? Then, um, by that time, sinampal niya yung partner niya. Tapos parang nandun sa atin, nasa loob na tinutulungan siya, pero hindi tayo makatake ng action kasi nahihiya tayo or ayaw natin mapahiya yung taong yun, di ba? There's an
Yes,
idea na baka may pinag-aawayan sila na seryoso, baka magiging okay lang sila kahit sinaktan yan, baka mag-shota yan or
yes,
mag-asawa yan. There's a lot of what if sa isip mo. Instead na
true,
tulungan
that's
siya.
true. And then sa kana pong kuan G kanang makita jud nimo ikaw bitaw witness kanang naay
Mm.
kanang like for example gilaparo or kuan gipusil so ikaw ang kuan bitaw nakita jud nimo sa imo ang kaugalingon nga sa imo galingon nga mata so first man jud nato nga kuan di ba first nato nga say tawag ani nga ato ang ma-feel is that ma-shock
Reaction.
ta o reaction is ma-shock ta di ta ka kuan di ba maskin kita murag mutiki kana
Uy,
bitaw mo stick ta sa atong
napod tay idea nga kuan mutakbo ta kay hello.
dagat ug ang
Mm,
uban po is like murag mo stick bitaw murag nagluha na ilang tiil sa kuan sa floor so di ba daghan siya kuan
exactly.
daghan siya og ang bystander
What
apathy is
if?
daghan siya og kanang
Mm.
kaya bitong mga ano bitong factors nga maong dili maka-intervene ng isa ka tawo or dili makakuan dili makatabang sa situation
Mm.
so katupos sa imong is di ba sa imo ang take one nato ganina is that katupong sa pagdunol
Sa
og pliti
jeep.
di ba J
Oh,
oh yes
exactly. Sa loob ng jeep 'pag nag-aabot ka ng bayad tapos walang kukuha,
yes
nag-initiate ka kung sino ba yung first na kukuha nung bayad or siya or ako yung 'di ba? Gaduwa-duwa
then
ta.
kanang ulaw light
'Di ba?
so inana siya kakuan complicated ang bystander apathy di ba so I think that's all for the bystander apathy guys wala na may ma-add
Wala na.
okay okay let's proceed to the theories of prosocial behavior so first is the empathy altruism which will be discussed by Jalila Abbas J.
Okay, so the first here is the empathy altruism. Empathy altruism is an action may be motivated by empathy, capacity to recognize emotions that are being experienced by another sentient or fictional being. Altruism is a behavior that reflects an unselfish concern for the welfare of others. Empathy, just like what Marian said sa first take natin, because we have been 4 takes already. Empathy is putting yourself in someone's position. No, pag naiisip mo yung condition ng ibang tao, parang feeling mo talaga there's an idea talaga na mapasok sa utak mo na tumulong sa kanya. Especially kung yung iniisip mong tao is nangangailangan talaga ng tulong. So there comes in your mind the helping behavior, the helping action na gusto mo talagang tumulong sa kanya. So altruism again is a behavior and seen as a form of prosocial behavior, but some experts suggest that they represent different concept because altruism is viewed as a form of helping motivated purely out of concern for the individual in need. Kasi ang pagiging altruism kasi nagiging mas naiisip mo yung ibang tao, nagiging selfish ka
Yes.
sa sarili mo,
You're being selfish
mas
to yourself.
inuuna mo, yes, mas inisip mo yung kapakanan ng ibang tao kaysa sa'yo. So, parang may pagka-negative ito kasi ang naapektuhan yung sarili mo, mas inuuna mo yung ibang tao. Pero it's a helping way also.
Yes, that's true. So move on to the second theory of social behavior which is the negative state relief model. So human beings have an innate drive to reduce negative moods. Negative mood increases helpfulness because helping others can reduce one's own bad feelings. So that was according to Bowman, Cialdini, and Kendrick 1981. So di ba, when others are kanang in bad mood, so ginadivert nila ila ang kanang emotions into helping others, because in that way murag ma-boost bitaw ila ang or ma-increase ila ang kanang bitaw kanang way makuan bitaw kanang instead na mag negative mood or makuan sila kanang na sila sa bad mood, di ba, when we help other, if then after helping that someone or after helping that specific person is like, if mo ingon siya, okay, thank you G for helping me, dako jud kani siya tabang sa ako ang pag-eskwela or dako jud kani siya tabang sa akong pamilya. So di ba, kanang simple thank you of kanang sa tawo nga gitabangan nimo is makakuan jud siya, maka-change siya mood, guys, literally. Bisag wala lang na siya kanang kay lahi ra jud diba nang makatabang ka din, ang imong gitabangan is na-appreciate niya ang ang imong gibuhat or gibuhat nimong effort, para lang sa iya kanang even though nga murag deprive na nimo imong kagalingong happiness just to help that specific person. So mo ni siya ang negative state relief model. So next is the kin selection theory.
So, Ken selection theory. As what Mehan discussed while ago about Ken selection, there are relatives that you will likely to help them first before others. Kumbaga, una mo sila i-care para sa kapakanan nila. In that way, mas mag-strong ilang relationship at ma-adapt sa sunod na generation ang pagtabang sa ilang mga relatives. Next.
Next is the reciprocal altruism, which will be discussed by Mehan.
Okay, reciprocal altruism or reciprocity is one solution to the evolutionary paradox of one individual making sacrifices for another unrelated individual. If individuals interact repeatedly, altruism can be favored as long as the altruist receive a reciprocal benefit that is greater. A reciprocal altruism or reciprocity is kung ang individual ay paulit-ulit na nagkikipag-interact, the altruism can be favored hanggat ang altruist ay tumatanggap ng kapalit na benepisyo na mas malaki kaysa sa initial cost na kanyang nagastos or nagawa. So that's all, Marian.
So thank you, everyone. So I think that's all for our discussion. And to wrap up our topic, so my insight for this is that dako jud kay tabang ang pro-social behavior sa in terms sa pag-build og strong relationship to one another, because di ba pro-social behavior is like iyang main point jud is intentional or sa imong kanang helping one another kanang without kanang kanang siing nga maapektuhan na pod imo ang kaugalingon. Pero napod siya kuan kanang nindot pod iyang effect which is both sides pod ang maka-benefit. So G, do you have something to add?
Okay na yan. Very well said, Marian.
So okay. Guys, that's all for our discussion. I am Marian Bigores.
And I am Julila Ampuan Abbas.
I am Hayati Gato.
And I am Mehen Amaikarot.
Thank you for listening to our discussion. Hope nga naamoy na learn. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.